people, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a bit different. So today I will be speaking about the summary of Be Wordsworth written by V.S. Naipaul. This is one of the stories which we had in our IS. Be Wordsworth by V.S. Naipaul. Be Wordsworth is a touching story from Naipaul's Miguel Street, written in 1959. A semi-autobiographical novel that focuses on the characters living in Miguel Street, a poor neighborhood set in wartime port of Spain, Trinidad. It is a collection of linked short stories, with each story focusing on a single character narrated by a precocious and keenly observant boy. B. Wordsworth is an imaginative Calypsonian poet who befriends the narrator, only to realize towards the end the mistake he had made in bringing the boy to his world of dreams. The story motivates the reader to appreciate poetry and beauty in the nature that surrounds us, as well as warns us about the dangers of forgetting reality. The story starts with the narrator recalling how beggars and rogues called every day at the hospitable houses in Miguel Street. The strangest caller, however, called one afternoon at about 4 o'clock, after the narrator had just come back from school. The man was small, dressed tidily, wearing a hat, a white shirt, and black trousers. He asked the boy if he could watch the bees in the yard. The boy immediately called his mother, who was worried by the excellent and unnatural English spoken by the man. She unwillingly agreed, but told the boy to stay there and watch the man while he watched the bees. The narrator and the boy watched the bees for about an hour. The man said that he could watch ants for days and asked the boy if he had ever watched the other creatures, to which the boy replied in the negative. Then the boy asked the man what he did for a living. The man got up and replied that he was a poet, the greatest in the world, and his name was B. Wordsworth. B stood for black. Black Wordsworth. White Wordsworth was my brother. We share one heart. Like the great English poet William Wordsworth, he too had a true love for nature and its beings. He could watch a small flower like the morning glory and cry. When a person is a true poet, he can cry for everything. The man then pulled out a piece of printed poetry from his hip pocket, saying that this was the greatest poem about mothers, and he was willing to sell it for a bargain price of 4 cents. When the boy asked his mother whether he wanted to sell it, the boy's mother told the blasted man to haul his tail away from her yard. The man referred to the situation as the poet's tragedy. He said that he had not sold a single piece of poetry till then, complimented the boy that he was as good a poet as he, and left. The man's second meeting with the young narrator occurred about a week later, when they met at the corner of Miguel Street. The man said that he had the best mango tree in Port of Spain and invited the boy to his house to eat ripe, red, and juicy mangoes. He lived in Alberto Street in a one-roomed hut placed right in the center of his yard, which seemed all green, also containing a coconut and a plum tree. The place was a contrast to the concrete jungle around it. The boy ate about 6 mangoes, and the sweet mango juice stained his shirt. When he reached his home late, his mother scolded him and beat him rather badly. In anger, the boy ran out of the house, swearing never to come back again. The boy went to B. Wordsworth's house. The man took the crying boy out for a walk to the savannah and then to the race course. They lay on the grass and looked up at the sky and the stars. The boy felt like nothing, and at the same time, he had never felt so big and great in all his life. When the boy calmed down, Wordsworth began telling him the names of the stars. The boy always remembered the constellation of Orion, the hunter. They were disturbed in their bliss by the arrival of a policeman. The two became good friends and started spending time together. The boy promised that he would keep everything a secret. The boy developed a liking for his little room. One day, the boy asked him the reason for keeping the yard bushy. B. Wordsworth then told him the story of a boy and a girl who fell in love and got married. Both were poets, and the girl poet loved the garden very much. One day she told the boy that they were going to have another poet in the family. The girl poet, however, died, and so did their unborn baby. Her sad husband decided to never touch a thing in the girl's garden. As he told the story, the man seemed to grow older. They continued going for long walks together to the botanical gardens and the rock gardens. They climbed Chancellor Hill and sat there, watching the darkness fall on the city. The man did everything as though he were doing some church rite. The world became a most exciting place. One day the man told him about a great secret. He said that he was writing the greatest poem in the world. He had been working on it for 5 years, and he would finish it in about 22 years from then. He wrote just one line a month, as he hoped to distill the experiences of a whole month into that single line of poetry. Once finished, he would have written a poem that will sing to all humanity. However, the poem was not going well. The boy learned that B. Wordsworth sang calypsos in the calypso season, and the money he earned lasted him the rest of the year. One day the boy went to see B. Wordsworth at his house and found him lying on his little bed. He looked so old and weak that the boy felt like crying. The man, looking through the window at the coconut tree, said that the poem was not going well, and he had lost the power within himself. The boy could clearly see death on his shrinking face. Seeing tears in the boy's eyes, the man sat up, made the boy sit on his knees, and acknowledged that the boy had the eyes of a poet, because he could see death. The man pulled him to his thin chest and said the story about the girl poet and the boy poet wasn't true, just like all the talk about poetry and the greatest poem in the world. He had made the boy promise that he would go away and never come back to see him. Now, as the man talked about everything being a lie, his voice broke. The boy left the house and ran home crying, like a poet, for everything he saw. A year later, the boy walked along Alberto Street, but could not find any sign of the poet's house. The house had been pulled down, and in its place stood a big two-storied building. The trees had been cut down, and there was brick and concrete everywhere. It was just as though B. Wordsworth had never existed. And now I will be talking about the story. It's like a conclusion. You can write for your answers. The poet was an escapist in the true sense of the term, in an attempt to deal with the futility of inner city life in post-colonial Trinidad. He had created a dream-like world. He tried to make the young boy a part of his imaginary world by telling him that he had the eyes of a poet, and also about the greatest poem in the world. It is at the end of his life, when he is acutely conscious of his stagnant nature and his failure as a poet, that he shatters the boy's illusion of a romantic world with his confession that everything that he had told about himself was untrue. With this, he allowed the boy the opportunity to discover reality and to become what he never was, a part of the real world. Love of nature is another important theme in this story. B. Wordsworth's world, comprising his own home and his activities, show a deep love for nature. His keen observation of the various marvels of nature and his battle to keep his garden house intact in the midst of the concrete jungle deserve accolades. However, he was a poet by thought and not by output. the very reason his traces were extinguished so quickly by the world. So there you have it. That was the summary of Be Wordsworth and a conclusion you can write for your long answers, as well as one of the main themes of the story. I will be reading the whole story for an audiobook in my next video, so stay tuned, and I hope you guys liked my video. Leave a like, comment something, and yeah, that's it. Goodbye.